everyone. We made it to Friday. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is the Hall of Famer, Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright. We are going to preview a whole heck of a lot of games this weekend. Good ones, too. The Vikings and Eagles, they're ready for their NFC Championship rematch. Jalen Ramsey's got some words for the Chiefs offense. But why not start with the Patriots and Colts taking center stage on Thursday Night Football? Tom Brady came into the game 3 touchdowns shy of 500, and he got his favorite target, Julian Edelman, back after a 4-game suspension, and he put him right to work. 7 catches, 57 yards, including 3 times on the opening drive. Aw, he really missed his friend. Brady threw for 341 yards, had 4 total touchdowns, and hooked up right there with his newest target, Josh Gordon, for touchdown number 500. Patriots top the Colts 38-24. They improved to 3-2 on the season. Here is Tom Brady after the game.
Things like that, milestones and so forth, there's so many people that contribute. So I just think of all the people that, have really worked hard. And, quarterback doesn't throw him to himself. He needs people to catch him and block, and defenses make plays, and coach is the coach. And these are all, great team awards. So
to catch any pass from Tom is amazing, let alone some history-making catch or pass. For him, I told him congratulations, and I know there's many more for him to come. Hopefully he's got a lot more left in him. I'm pretty sure he does. So I'm looking forward to that. And, the next, history point to make for him, I hope to be a part of it. So it was awesome.
It was good to get out there and catch some rocks and go out and make some plays and be with the fellas. It was I haven't played football in probably, I think it was like 405 days or something like that.
Just a good, good win on a short week, and to be 3-2 where we're at 1-2. So we got a huge game coming up, a week from Sunday.
All right, a lot of storylines in this game. You have Tom Brady, you have Edelman back. But let's start with this.
You're not the only one going sleeveless today, Jenna.
All right.
Well, Julian Edelman.
Yes,
He's
Julian Edelman
ready.
Decided it was not as drafty as he thought it was in that post-game press conference.
I think after a 4-game PED suspension, he's like, listen, it's real.
This is all natural, America.
Let me show you.
Sorry about that.
By wearing no sleeves, which was my thought process
exactly
this
right.
morning.
Jenna also all natural.
I showed you
True
guys.
story.
Let's start with the Patriots offense. What do you make of what you saw last night from their offense?
And Nick and I talked about it early this morning. It's about what we expected coming from the game. We knew the Colts were outmanned, out-personneled. I mean, from a healthy standpoint, this is some of the worst conditions you can be at for a Thursday night game. The late overtime game, we know about them losing to the Texans, then having to travel to New England. Like, they didn't even have enough guys to suit up for the whole 47-man roster. Like, they had guys actively who could have played, but no. Like, they weren't healthy enough to be able to play. So we knew coming into the game they would pick them apart. We knew that the Colts couldn't blitz to create enough pressure on Tom Brady because they didn't want to play man-to-man. We thought that he would immediately start going back to Edelman, which he did. We thought the running backs would play a role, throwing and catching James White and Sony Michel, and they did. I mean, Tom Brady, for me, Nick asked me what I thought about the game. I said, I think Tom's just going to play forever.
What you actually said is, why would he ever stop? Why would you quit if you're Brady and these are the circumstances?
The game is too easy. I mean, they can't rush you, and even if they do rush you, they can't land on you. They can't hit you. They can't hit you to your head. So the game is so much easier than it's ever been. And to me, there was not a point in the game where I think Tom Brady was stressful one little bit. So when you can play the game like that, I mean, that's what New England is going to be able to do. Now they got Edelman back. You can see that Josh Gordon, Brady's starting to be a little more comfortable with him. Well, how do you know that? Not only the number of plays that he played, but the ball when Brady was scrambling and he throws that ball up and there's 2 defenders there, Brady does not do that unless he trusts you. So I believe that will pay dividends as long as Josh can do everything the Patriot way game after game. Edelman gave them that emotional lift that I had told them about. So, yeah, this is what I expect from the Pats, especially in October. They're going to start turning the corner. They're going to play better football. But for us to think that this is a team that would be challenging the AFC, no, it's not. The Colts are a long ways away.
The Colts have a lot of issues when they're fully healthy, and it's why any evaluation of Andrew Luck is probably going to have to wait until next year, because he's not only coming back from injury, but he also, even with a fully healthy roster, doesn't have enough talent around him. One of those, the final pick he threw yesterday was off a receiver's hands on a perfectly thrown ball. But speaking of picks off receivers' hands, I mean, I didn't see Brady make a mistake yesterday. And I think this speaks to the point you were making, which is why would he stop playing? He was never under duress. He seemed totally comfortable. I thought Troy Aikman told a great story. And it's funny listening to Troy call these games because he saw Brady was grazed on the head and they called a personal foul. And you almost can hear it in Troy's voice, like, do you remember what I went through? And
He's like, look at my face.
I mean, look at what and so he told a story about watching a film from a game that was kind of forgotten from a few years ago, a Tom Brady-Pats game, where Brady's numbers weren't that good. And he was constantly under duress. And the story he told was, but Brady clearly had decided, I'm not getting sacked. The one thing that's not going to happen in this game is we are in a bad down and distance because I get sacked. And he said he thought it was one of the best quarterbacking performances he had ever seen, even though the numbers wouldn't say that, because of the control he had over the game. And last night you saw that. He wasn't constantly under duress, but when he was, because he knew the only way the Colts would get back in the game is a strip sack, an injury, some super negative play. If they had pressure, I'm going to get rid of it. And if not, I'm just going to let now a fully functional receiving core out-athlete the Colts defenders. And by the way, side note, Sony Michel might be a real weapon. This is his second straight big game from Sony Michel, the Pats' first running back they've taken in the first round since Lawrence Maroney about a decade ago, paid dividends the last 2 weeks.
500th home run for Tom Brady. Put that in perspective for us.
Yeah, home runs, touchdowns, they're all good.
Home runs?
They're all good.
That's what I meant. First put the home runs, then talk about the
I had 130 of them in my day.
Awesome.
100 of them from the left side, 30 from the right. I mean,
down,
Tom Brady,
apparently.
it's a tremendous accomplishment. Like, we start talking about Drew Brees and Drew Brees being in the class of Dan Marino, Peyton Manning, and all these great quarterbacks. This is not something we ever thought Tom Brady would. We didn't think that Tom, because his first 3 Super Bowls, people were just giving, New England, they're responsible. Belichick's more responsible. But Tom Brady, the last 8 to 10 years, I mean, he is one of the best throwers of the football. He's not a game manager. I mean, he has taken up chunks of yardage year after year and touchdown after touchdown. I never thought he'd be a 500 touchdown quarterback.
No.
So looking at him, how he's adapted his game and how New England has changed, that he would be able to finally be in this category, it speaks to his expertise, his accuracy. He takes advantage of you in the red zone. That's the reason why he is the GOAT. It's not because all the Super Bowls, it's everything. It's the completions, it's the yardage, it's the touchdowns. The totality of it speaks for itself.
And the way he has built as he's aged. I looked this up this morning, and it's a very interesting exact median point. From his rookie season through the end of the 2009 season, he played 129 games in that decade. In those 129 games, he threw 225 touchdown passes. From the start of 2010 until right now, he has played 129 games, the exact same amount of games. He's thrown 275 touchdowns. So to have that accelerated pace when you're including age 38, 39, 40, and now 41-year-old season, that's the unprecedented part of it. Like, we're going to talk about Drew Brees Monday because he's going to get to 500 most likely.
Yes.
And he deserves an enormous amount of accolades because he was a guy who had to change teams, dealt with an injury. But once he got with the Saints, he's been operating at this high level basically consistently. Brady has been building to this over the final quarter of his career, which is unprecedented.
And we used to think when we compared him to Peyton Manning, we always said that Peyton Manning would have all the stats and Brady would have all the championships.
That's a great point.
No, Brady's got both.
Right.
And I think that he has made it a point in his overall longevity that, yes, those numbers are very, very important because No one will ever be able to match his excellence as far as touchdowns, yards, completions, and the championships.
Tom Brady figured out something very early as he was aging in his career. If I work on two things that maybe other people don't as much, I could be successful. Intellect on the football field and self-preservation. He has done that with his body, and he has figured out an intellectual way to approach the game, and it has equaled longevity for him. All right, we'll talk much more about this game coming up, though. Who has the edge in Sunday's NFC Championship rematch? Next on First Things First.
Hey guys, we'll get right back to the show, but first I'm here to tell you about 4 Hims. Most guys don't do nearly enough for their skin despite all it does for them. Soap and water are just not enough to prevent aging, but 4 Hims is here to help. Hims Anti-Aging Kit is a custom prescription cream tailored to your skin that can keep your skin looking youthfully smooth by reducing the appearance of wrinkles and fine lines. It can renew and restore skin by increasing collagen, the protein that keeps your skin firm. It takes seconds to apply, and it's the same treatment celebrities use to keep their faces looking young, except you don't have to visit some fancy dermatologist or pay high prices to get it. No more awkward in-person doctor's office visits, and the products are shipped directly to your door. It's your skin. Do you want to be a face in the crowd or the face in the crowd? Order now and save $20 off your first month of the Hims Anti-Aging Kit. Lock in those looks now and get your first month of anti-aging for $20 off. Go to 4hims.com/firstsc. That's 4hims.com/firstsc. 4hims.com/firstsc.
Fox Sports has teamed up with For the Win
Who?
for the College Football
Fox
Fan
Sports.
Index. Fox Sports. Each week, you, the fans, will be ranking college football experiences. This week, we're ranking which school is the king of their rivalry. So you can vote on Twitter or Instagram with the hashtag FanIndex plus the hashtag for your school. Learn more at collegefootballfanindex.com. The results are in, and CC, no big surprise, it's Ohio State.
Yeah, we've done well in this one. Yes, we've earned our way to the top of this chart.
Except at number 3.
Well, so Ohio State's beaten Michigan. That's their rival 13 of 14 times.
Yes.
And then you see Michigan's number 3 on that list. So how does that... Michigan, maybe their new rival is Central Michigan or Western Michigan.
Or Notre Dame or someone else.
Because
it's not Michigan State and Ohio
It's
State.
the field. It's the field.
Yeah, I thought you had to be smart to get into Michigan.
You do.
The fans? So the fans...
I mean, maybe they're just voting with their heart, not their head. Navy dominates their rival as well. Navy's been much better than Army over the last...
Florida State's had the edge over the Hurricanes over the last decade.
It's a good list.
Yep.
Ohio State number 1.
All right, we're going to get to the Vikings and Eagles in a bit. But first, Thursday Night Football, Tom Brady finds Josh Gordon. It's 34 yards, but this catch was a good one. It is Tom Brady's 500th of his career.
This was, I think the offensive line deserves tremendous credit for this play happening because the Colts had good coverage, man. They had good coverage until the end. Like, someone's going to break open when you give Tom Brady 5 seconds in the pocket, which is what he had there. And Josh Gordon goes up and makes a play.
Yeah, Tom Brady trusting him there. Him and Josh Gordon building chemistry should pay dividends as we get into the meat of the schedule.
Junior high school football, American Leadership Academy in Gilbert, Arizona. 7th grader Reed Harris handles a defender for the touchdown.
Oh my God. Hey, son, keep your head up. All right? Heads up football.
Oh, you're talking about the tackler.
Yes,
He
absolutely.
dipped his head.
Yeah, keep your head up there. That'll stop him. That'll stop Reed from jumping.
That's a nice little facility they got for the junior high team.
Man, dude landed on his feet. That's a tremendous run.
NBA preseason Lakers Kings. Ivica Zubac starts the break with a block. Lance Stevenson rewards him with a nice pass for the dunk.
Way to rim run, Zubac.
shimmy.
Oh, and then Lance.
Shimmy.
Man, every Lance play is going to be a feature presentation. Watch him the moment he makes this pass. He's already celebrating. Lance.
New York City's finest.
Look at this guy. This guy.
All right, finally, Pacers visiting the Rockets. Miles Turner catches a pass. Down low, puts Marquise Cris on a poster.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I know that wasn't Capella. He did that, too. Marquise Cris, former lottery pick, the Rockets brought over this offseason, trying a little reclamation project.
I watched that game last night. He's going to be good for them. Melo, Melo don't look as good in that white, man.
It's not as flattering?
Melo
If I
look
can't
like Jell-O.
criticize his game, we're going to hit fashion.
Hey, I'm cheering for him.
Yeah, you are. I'm moving on to America's Game of the Week. Another great one. Rematch of last season's NFC title game. Vikings heading to Philly to take on the Eagles. Both teams have been slightly disappointing so far this season. Neither with a winning record. Neither thought they'd be here. But neither want your sympathy. Here's Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer.
You know, this isn't time for woe is me. You know, if people remember, we were 2-2 this time last year. We finished 13-3. We were 5-0 the year before, and we finished 8-8. We were 2-2 the year before that, and we finished 11-5. So, you know, all the predictors are not really. This isn't a good time to predict.
All right, see, these are two teams who really, really need a win. Who needs it more?
Ooh, that's hard to say. The Vikings at least had a good preseason. But if you look at the last 3 weeks, they get the win against San Francisco in week number 1 at home. But the last 3 weeks, when you're 0-2-1, the last 3 weeks, and you're talking about Super Bowl aspirations, now much respect to Coach Zim, what he's saying, but he's talking about 13-3. They brought everyone back, added Kirk Cousins. I mean, what did we think they're going to be this year? 10-6? Like, we'd be happy with that? No. They have one of the most talented rosters. They're supposed to be one of the best teams. Philadelphia, Super Bowl hangover. It's a real thing in the NFL. How to deal with being a Super Bowl champ. They had a bad training camp. They've had a bad first month. So both of these teams are in a situation, if they're going to stay on track, they need it. Can the Vikings recover? Because I would say from a style standpoint, you lose at home to Buffalo. You know, we saw what happened to them against the Rams being one of the better teams. I would say the Vikings are a little more desperate because Philadelphia, their starting quarterback just came back for 2 games. They had a couple of frontline players that haven't been playing, so they're going to develop some chemistry as they go on. So the Vikings, they must win this game. I believe the pressure is on them going on the road to Philadelphia.
I'm not saying that the Eagles are definitely fine, but I think the Eagles will probably be fine. The Vikings I'm really worried about, and here's why. Who are they?
Defense.
That's what they're supposed to be. Defense, they haven't been this year. And how about this on the other side of the ball? Do you know which team has the highest percentage of pass plays this year? The Vikings. That ain't who Mike Zimmer's trying to be. They're throwing the ball nearly 75% of the time. That's a higher percentage than the Texans, than the Colts, than teams that know they have no running game and no defense, so they're going to have to be throwing the football. Like, it doesn't make sense. They're throwing it a higher percentage, well, than everyone, but just to emphasize the point, than Pittsburgh. Like, think about that. Pittsburgh's throwing it 70% of the time. Minnesota's throwing it nearly 75% of the time. Like, I understand, like a little kid, you have a shiny new toy, you want to play with it. But that doesn't, don't forget the toys that got you here. And they don't have an identity right now. And you can, butt your way through all their games. All right, the game against Green Bay, it's a missed opportunity. They had opportunities to win. They didn't lose it, fine. All right, Buffalo, they're looking ahead to the Rams game. But that didn't do you no good because the Rams beat you anyway. And so it's a good point. 5-0 turned into 8-8, and 2-2 turned into 13-3. But the consistent force through the 5-0 start or the 2-2 start was a dominant defense, a great defense. This Vikings defense hasn't even been average this year. That's one of the most surprising results of the season so far, that the Vikings defense has atrophied to this level. The Jags, last year, remember those charts we had?
Yes.
Where it was Jags and Minnesota, 1-2 in every category. The Jags are still 1-2 in every category. Minnesota has fallen off into the 20s in nearly every category.
It's the same thing with the Eagles. Coming into the season, the two things you didn't have to worry about were the Eagles defense, seemingly, and the Vikings defense, seemingly. The Eagles defense looked vulnerable the last 2 weeks. The Vikings defense, they've given up at least 27 points the last 3 games. Are they having, like what Nick said, an identity crisis for both teams?
Well, this is the thing with the Eagles. At least you can identify one grouping. Like, you can blame it. Teams don't like to, but for the Eagles, it's their secondary.
Yes.
The Vikings, it's been sometimes the defensive line getting gashed running or not getting a pass rush with their best pass rusher, Emerson Griffin. We don't know when he's going to come back to play for them. Their linebackers have struggled in tackling, also in pass coverage. We saw Anthony Barr, man, get toasted against the Rams. And their secondary. Xavier Rhodes, like he's a shutdown travel corner. He struggled this season. So we've seen that. The Eagles, it's isolated in their secondary. Last year, their secondary played above their talent. Now they are a question mark moving forward.
And while the Eagles' defense might not be as high a level as we thought it would be, they're still fringe top 10 in most categories and the #1 rush defense, which speaks to your point, see, it's really about the bad pass defense. Vikings are 22nd in points, 21st in yards, 27th in yards per play defensively. And so that is one of the reasons, by the way, they're throwing the ball as often as they are, and maybe they can take advantage of a Eagles secondary that's underperforming. But I think the Eagles will find their legs. I think Carson Wentz is going to get better as the year goes on, not get worse. And I think the Eagles know who they are. We took the Kirk Cousins addition as an obvious upgrade because it is, from Case Keenum to Kirk Cousins. But if adding him made them change even psychologically how they're trying to win games, how they've been successful, they need to recalibrate that. Because this was a team that with Teddy Bridgewater in year 2 went 11-5 and was in the playoffs, should have won that game if not for Blair Walsh. Started out the next year 5-0 until they were ravaged by injury. Like, this team's been good for years now.
Also, when you get a new offensive coordinator, Chris DiFilippo, sometimes these guys are the next up-and-coming young coach. They try to be a little more promoting themselves by how they're play calling compared to Shermer, who was there last year, and they had more balance.
All right, moving on to the main event, the world of MMA this weekend. McGregor taking on Khabib in UFC 229. All right, Nick, what do you expect in this matchup?
Man, America, make your money that you're going to bet on the NFL on Sunday, on Saturday night. McGregor's a dog here. I don't know how he's a dog here. I understand that people are right now cooling on Conor McGregor. He should be a slight favorite in this fight. You got him at like plus 150 on most of your available legal betting operations. I like McGregor this fight. I like McGregor in a knockout second round. That's what I like this weekend, very specifically.
The NLDS continues today, starting at 3:30 Eastern. First, the Rockies take on the Brewers. Then at 9, the Braves square off with the Dodgers, all on FS1 and the Fox Sports app.
That we're going to talk about in a minute, but that Rockies-Brewers game last night was outstanding. Some high drama at the end in a game that didn't look like it was going to provide it.
Great way to start a little baseball playoffs. Time now for us to go viral. While most players are trying to avoid fines for roughing the passer, Ndamukong Suh has other ideas, practicing taking down the quarterback by any means necessary. That is how you rack up $620,000 in fines over the course of your career.
All offseason, everyone was worried, how are the Rams going to get along? And Ndamukong Suh is finally having some fun.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, he's on social media. Like, he's having the time of his... I'm glad to see that. That's good, because he spoiled one of my Thanksgiving when he stomped a guy. So now I'm glad he can laugh about it.
And see, those tackling dummies are a little heavier than I think the general public thinks. Like, they're not, it's not just they're inflated with air.
No,
like,
absolutely not.
And so
it's weighted.
It's weighted at the bottom. So
yes.
when you see the force he hit that thing with, I mean, that's a scary dude, man.
Yeah, and Ndamukong Suh, he's for real. He's for real.
All right, it's time for stories to start your morning. The Brewers took game 1 from the Rockies last night behind a walk-off single from Mike Moustakas in the 10th inning. Game 2 coverage begins at 3:30 today on FS1. Nick, how impressed were you with the Brewers?
Man, this Christian Yelich guy is unbelievable.
Unreal.
He has an OPS of 1,800 on their 8-game winning streak to get them into the NLDS. And then the top of the third, bottom of the third, pardon me, 2-run home run. That's the only scoring we have until the 9th inning. And who scored on that Moustakas walk-off? Yelich. After drawing a walk. He has been amazing.
I talk about that swing. It reminds me of Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, with no effort, he lifts that ball to the left center field. And then Nick in the 9th inning, I could have swore the Rockies going to just steal this game.
I thought they were, too.
I mean, it was pretty uneventful. And then at the 9th inning, Rockies had a chance to be able to steal it. I thought they were going to take game 1.
Absolutely. Brewers getting out of that 9th inning with tied. They were able to close it late. But, yeah, it looked like the Rockies had it.
All right, action continues today. Moving on to college football now. Red River Showdown, Texas taking on Oklahoma. Tom Herman trying to take down Kyler Murray and that high-powered Oklahoma offense. CC, what do you expect in this one?
Texas gets off to a rough start to the season, losing their first game. They've gained some momentum in the last 4 games. They got to create some turnovers. They got to be able to force Murray into making some turnovers to give their offense extra possessions. It's a momentum game, rivalry game, not only college rivalry, but a lot of these rivalries for these kids, they go against each other in high school. So this is a spirited, I'm looking forward to this one, starting early Saturday morning.
Kyler Murray's been one of, if not the best player in college football this year, but this is a very interesting opportunity for the University of Texas. If you look at Tom Herman's career, even dating back to the University of Houston, he does lose some games he shouldn't. But as an underdog, he was outstanding at the University of Houston. Some of his biggest wins at Texas have come in that setting. They're touchdown underdogs to their hated rival.
Also, I think 29 NFL teams went to Oklahoma this offseason to find out how Lincoln Riley runs that offense. So big influence on the NFL, college football, Oklahoma the biggest.
All right, speaking of the NFL, let's move on to Aaron Rodgers. He was not happy with his offense last weekend after they only scored 22 points against a bad Buffalo team. They'll try and get the offense up and running again against the Fighting Matt Patricias on Sunday. Packers and Lions. Nick, do you expect the Packers offense to get back on track?
I do, and they need to. Like, this is their path through the NFC is Aaron Rodgers getting back near the top of these quarterback lists as far as statistical production. Like, I looked at his numbers last night, and in a normal year, he's having a good year. But in 2018, he's middle of the pack in everything. If Aaron Rodgers is middle of the pack production-wise, the Packers have no path to being a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned as a couple weeks ago when Aaron wasn't practicing. But I am concerned most of the wide receivers aren't practicing. So it's hard to develop continuity with this different group of wide receivers with most of them, 3 of their top 4, missing practice time. So this is a game. Watch out for the Lions at home. They won 1 win. That's against the Pats. I look for them to try to get to 2 and 3 with a win, upset the Packers in this one.
All right, finally, Baker Mayfield has big weekend plans coming off a 300-yard performance last week, one that also included 4 turnovers. He'll try to autocorrect this week as he makes his first ever home start, taking on the 3-1 Ravens. When asked about Baker, Ravens defensive coordinator Don Wink Martindale compared him to some of the best to ever play the game.
I think Baker Mayfield's this generation's a Brett Favre or John Elway, if you will. I mean, this guy knows where he wants to go with the ball, and he's very accurate. He has a quick release, and he's really playing well. So, you know, obviously he's playing well. They scored 42 points, you know, last week against Oakland, and they're, you know, in the top 5 and 10 of scoring offense. So, you know, I think that he's done a nice job filling in, and it seems like they have more rhythm with him as a rookie every play that he's in there.
So apparently the in thing this year is to compare all the current playing quarterbacks to Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
No, it's a good note. You see that. I haven't seen the people that are coaching this game and executives of this game excited about a young group of quarterbacks like the 5 quarterbacks that we've seen, 4 of them starting for the team. So that's a good point by you. Man, we don't normally see that.
And it's just real quick to elaborate on it. It matters who's saying these things. It's not the anonymous scout. It's not the former GM turned media guy typically. And I know Bill Polian is that, but Bill Polian's also Hall of Famer who was a GM for 25 plus years. And it's on the record coaches. Like, it's guys that are in the league, because guys that are in the league are usually very, very hesitant to anoint anybody the next thing. So I think you have to take those comments more seriously than sometimes the anonymous scout you read in the...
All right, so if we all agree they're not inflated comments, who does Baker Mayfield remind you of? Either a guy you've played with, a guy you remember, a Hall of Famer that really knew how to play the game?
I mean, this is the thing with Baker. He was so good in college, and we just normally don't see and transfer what guys are able to do in college, especially playing in those systems. In the Big 12, we've seen this, the Pac-12, we've seen guys rack up huge numbers and then not be able to transfer that to the NFL. But Baker, he has rare skills. Like even though he's undersized, man, he's very, very accurate with the football. Like, we believe he can be just as good as when he won the Heisman Trophy. We've seen Heisman Trophy winners struggle in the NFL, but he's so accurate. He has great leadership skills. And I believe that Cleveland, they're putting some of the right parts around him to be able to support him as an organization. They're going to have the right system with Todd Haley as a quality offensive coordinator. So his skill level, he's accurate with the football. Man, he's got a fastball. He's also got a changeup. So he can vary his speeds, but ultimately, I told Nick, man, there's certain guys, man, they're just meant to play this game and play it at a high level. And that Baker Mayfield, sometimes you can't equate to one thing. He has it.
I got some pushback from a buddy of mine recently because he made fun of me because it's been 6 quarters, and I went on television and I called Baker Mayfield a star. And I said, he's a star right now and he's going to be a star. And my rebuttal was, show me at one point he wasn't. Show me at one point in Baker Mayfield's even young adult football life that he did not exceed all expectations and that he did not walk on the field as the best guy out there, or at least believing credibly he was the best guy out there. He's a 3-time Heisman Trophy finalist. I bring it up all the time, but I think it matters. He broke his own record on college football efficiency, and he took over a Browns offense that was restricted, that seemed to be just scuttling along with Tyrod Taylor, and they scored 42 points in his first start, granted against a bad Raiders defense. Like, I think these comparisons are legitimate. I do think Baker Mayfield is one of the sure things in the league right now. Now, he's got a tough test. That Ravens defense is very good, and they have Jimmy Smith coming back after his suspension. So it's a very tough test this week and a very important game for Cleveland.
All right, let's move on to another game. The showdown in Texas, 2-2 Cowboys taking on the 1-3 Houston Texans. Ezekiel Elliott coming off his best game of the season, where he had 240 total yards and a touchdown. You see, that's what happens when you let the best player on your team be the best player on your team. So why are the Cowboys worried about these struggling Texans? We'll let Dak Prescott tell you.
Just named it. They've got Pro Bowl guys on that defense and guys that can affect the game and win the game themselves. So when you have guys like that, you just got to count for them, have a plan for them, and we have that.
All right, see, what are you looking for in this matchup Sunday night?
Texans have been good against the run, awful against the pass. Top 10 as far as against the rush, 31st as far as coverage. So for the Dallas Cowboys, Nick told me this. He was like, don't trust your instincts. Don't trust yourself. Don't run the football. Don't look at the numbers. The number guy, the guy that's doing our stats and everything. Don't go to the numbers. We couldn't have a show if we didn't go to the numbers. He's telling Dallas, run the football against us. Shorten the game. Stick to your strength. Exactly like you said. Don't wait till after the game. Look at the stat sheet and discover, I didn't get a ball to my best player. No, give it to him. Go your strength against their strength, because what you believe is their weakness still might be stronger than your weakness as far as the passing game. But, Nick, even as much as they run the ball, which they should do with Zeke, can you do this for me, Cowboys? Can you throw the ball one time a quarter deep?
Oh,
not twice.
You restricted it. Last week you asked for twice a quarter.
Yes.
Now you just want once a quarter.
Because, I mean, if people aren't going to do what why should I get on here and be like, hey, can you throw the ball twice? So film, NFL teams break down 4 weeks. I used to tell my coordinators, forget that. Just one. All right? Make the defense back up one time of quarter, but, man, Zeke's got to touch it 25 times.
Yes.
And I need 20 rushes. I know I'm not going for 15 rushes, 10 catches. No, I need 20 rushes because that's going to shorten up that clock. You don't want J.J. Watt. You don't want Clowney. Right now, I think last week's game was the best game I've seen them since they've played. They've been on the squad a long time together, both of them, but playing at a high level, I think last week's game was the best that I saw them play.
And J.J. Watt had 3 sacks 2 weeks ago against the Giants, and he had 2 sacks last week. All of a sudden, he's got 5. That's second in the league.
Yeah, AFC Defensive Player of the Week. A lot of people, because they're not winning, he's not getting that attention. But J.J. Watt is as close as we've seen to the MVP, J.J. Watt.
So I want to talk. I think you covered the offense because I totally agree with that. But I said J.J.'s second in the league in sacks. I want to talk about the guy who's first in the league in sacks, DeMarcus Lawrence. He plays for the Dallas Cowboys too. And the Texans have the worst offensive line in football. If you can go into this game, if you're Dallas, relying on Zeke, because I think the Texans' run defense numbers are actually inflated. I think one of the reasons they have this gaudy run defense is because everyone can throw against them, so why run the ball? If you have a good quarterback.
It's as if someone was giving you FedEx for free.
Yes, you're not going to use the U.S. Postal Service. You're going to just go ahead. And so, like, I think for Houston, it looks like they're better against the run than they are. Now, they are better against the run than the pass, but it's not that big of a discrepancy. So, but I think the Cowboys can get them on the ground, and on the other side of the ball, I think DeMarcus Lawrence can wreck this game. I think DeMarcus Lawrence, as escapable as Deshaun Watson is, I think the Cowboys go into this game with the best offensive player, Ezekiel Elliott, and the guy right now, with respect to J.J. Watt and Clowney, the defensive player who, even if he's not the best, the guy who has the ability to make the biggest impact, because he's not running against Tyron Smith or Zach Martin or the Cowboys' offensive line. And so I think DeMarcus Lawrence is the key to this game for Dallas.
It's a good point. How important is it to keep Deshaun Watson in the pocket on Sunday?
I believe it's important because Dallas has kind of struggled on the back end, especially at one corner spot, and they're going to try to help him out. You don't want to play too much man-to-man because if you got your back to the quarterback, then he's running out of the pocket. You want to know where he is. So Dallas, not only Lawrence on the outside, they got to make sure that guys are very, very disciplined in their pass lanes inside because you want to keep him in the pocket. You don't want him to break down the defense. We know that Dallas can force him into some turnovers. And you're going to be able to force him into more turnovers in the pocket. So you got to be disciplined as far as trying to get to the quarterback. You rush him, but you rush with a little bit of caution, keeping eyes on him, trying to keep him in a certain part of the field.
And people should know, Deshaun Watson, week 1, the big nationally televised game against the Pats, he was bad. He didn't look anything like the Deshaun Watson of last year. Since then, he's looked a lot closer to the Deshaun Watson of last year. And last week, the Texans ran an offense similar to last year's offense, first time all year. They have a new wide receiver, a rookie. I'm going to mispronounce his last name, but Kiki Kute, who in his first game ever as a pro last week had 11 catches, I think the most in 10 years in your first NFL game. So they've got weapons offensively on the outside. You mentioned forcing turnovers. That is something this Cowboys defense has not done all year. Dead last in the league in forced turnovers. The Texans will turn the ball over. The Cowboys, if they're going to win this game, which I think they can, they have to win the turnover battle, which is something they've struggled with all year long.
Dead last, nowhere to go but up.
Yep.
Coming up, how will Patrick Mahomes handle a nasty Jags defense? That is next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Former Super Bowl champ Cris joins the show. Hey, Cris.
Hey, Jenna. How you doing this morning?
I am great. It is Friday. We got a lot of football coming up.
Here we go.
Things are good. Let's talk some Patrick Mahomes because he, too, is
Don't
good.
jump on him today, big dog. It's Friday. He got kind of a crispy little jacket.
You talking about me?
I'm going to stall him out, CC.
Yeah, don't get no
I'm gonna
blood.
let him
If
know.
people weren't watching, I'd say, sorry, Jenna. I yelled at Canny, and then I realized he's 6'8", and I lowered my voice slightly.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And
I'm going to need you
wrong.
to use that Pat Mahomes voice. Use that when you address me.
Speaking of Patty Mahomes, he's quickly becoming the story this NFL season. For many, he's already the MVP. For others, he's heading to the Hall. He'll face possibly his toughest test yet as the Chiefs host the Jaguars and their stingy defense on Sunday. However, Jacksonville head coach Doug Marrone had big praise for the young quarterback.
Right now, he's playing better than any quarterback's ever played. I mean, he's an MVP quarterback. What the question is what he can't do. I don't know. I mean, I don't think words can really put in perspective how great he's playing.
All right, hyperbole aside, is he the greatest human being on the face of the planet ever?
I don't know about all that.
Lived and walked?
No, I don't know about all that. I don't know where Doug Marrone was taking that one.
Let's jump right to the end. All right, Kenny, who's got the advantage here? The Chiefs' high-powered offense with
Superman.
Patrick Mahomes or the greatest human ever, or the Jags defense?
This is that old paradoxical question, right? What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? And you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, #1 scoring defense in the NFL. They ain't allowed a touchdown in the first half of any game that they've played. And they've only given up 4 all season, and 2 of those came in the last 20 minutes of that home win against the Patriots. So this is a top-flight defense. And so when you look at what the Kansas City Chiefs are on offense, personnel-wise, they're as good as anybody. And Pat Mahomes puts defenses in a tough spot. Because even if you take away his first or second read, he has the ability to use his legs to extend the plays. And I don't care how good your corners are and how good your secondary coverage is, if you've got a quarterback that can provide that extra 2 or 3 seconds for his receivers to uncover downfield, it presents a problem. So for me, this is more about the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive front making sure they have disciplined rush lanes and they don't let Pat Mahomes out of the pocket, don't give him the opportunity to get out on the edges and put pressure on the perimeter of that defense and the secondary downfield.
When you look at this Jacksonville defense and Doug Marrone, what he's done is they are a very, very good defense. Good defensive front. Great linebackers, a lot of speed, great coverage on the back end, not only man, but also zone coverage. When have they struggled? When they faced an attack like Kansas City. Yes. Pittsburgh Steelers, they spread them out, make them play nickel. Because this Jacksonville defense, they want to play in a phone booth if they can. You know, they want to get into a fist fight. They can play man-to-man on the outside, but when you spread them out with the type of speed, and especially with smaller guys, Jalen is a great coverage guy. Likes to play man-to-man, likes to play bump and run, height, reach, his speed down the field, but his long speed is great. In short areas, he's not as quick as Tyreek Hill. So if he tries to play, you know, to his strong suit and bump and run, I believe over a long period of time that would hurt Jalen in this matchup. So I believe it's hard to go against Kansas City. It's hard because not only do they have the wide receivers, they have the tight end. The key to Kansas City is, do they have some type of balance? You have to be able to run the ball against Jacksonville. You can't throw the ball 50 times. So I believe Andy Reid knows how important that is in the game, especially early. Have some success. You mentioned they haven't given up that number in the first half. How does Kansas City play? Because I believe it's more important at home than they were last week. Last week they struggled. You like them to be old patient against Denver, but later on they caught fire. In this game, at home against one of the great defenses in the league, one of the few great defenses in the league, I believe it's important that they get some momentum and get some points early now.
And even though it didn't show last week, where the Chiefs have been killing people is in the first half.
Yeah.
They've been running away and hiding in the first quarter, really, and then just holding on from there. I picked the Chiefs to lose to the Steelers because I thought the Steelers were going to be able to score close to 40 points. They scored 37. Chiefs just scored 42. The Chiefs next week play the Pats. I think that is even though the Chiefs have had good history against the Pats recently, I think that's a brutal matchup because of the Chiefs' deficiencies defensively. So I want to make it clear, I don't think the Chiefs can just beat anybody. But I do think they can beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. I do not think the way to beat the Chiefs is we're going to stop your offense. I don't think right now, with the current rules and the way Pat Mahomes is playing and with the just plethora of weapons he has, I don't think this offense can be held below 23, 24 points. We saw the Broncos play them as well as they could. They still got to 24. So I don't think this is the type of team built to beat the Chiefs. I think the type of team built to beat the Chiefs is one that can score with them and get some stops. The Jags have to win this game 17-13. And I don't think
good luck with that.
And I don't think, as great as this defense is, and you were right before the year, I said I thought Minnesota would have the best defense. You were all in on Jacksonville. They have been everything you thought they'd be. I don't think they can hold this Chiefs team under 20.
If I'm the Jags, and I'm not going to get ahead of myself and think postseason. You know, I'm not going to, but this Chiefs offense is the type of team that you need a little bit of luck on your side. You like potentially some bad weather, maybe some rain, which they might have on Sunday. But if Jacksonville wins it their way, they want to play in a knockdown, drag-out, run the football, eat up time possession. They're not going to have Fournette at full strength. So I think that this Jags team is set up to be able to defeat a Chiefs team because of the ball control. I don't believe it's this week.
Yeah.
But when they're at full strength, I believe the way they play defense, get a little bad weather, which is harder for offenses like this. That's why dome teams haven't been successful as far as winning a Super Bowl, because they play a certain way. Kansas City, because they're outdoors, I believe they'll develop that ruggedness that will be effective as they go into late December and into the playoffs.
And it is just supposed to be a rainstorm in Kansas City. Nice, warm weather, high 60s, low 70s. It's supposed to be a rainstorm this weekend in Kansas City.
Which could benefit the Jacksonville Jaguars in that situation, because you brought up the example of the Pittsburgh Steelers. In those 2 games that the Jags had with them last year, they were able to force a lot of turnovers, being able to score on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's the way that you slow down this Kansas City Chiefs offense. You steal some possessions for them. You take advantage of a young quarterback. You can see that the Jacksonville Jaguars, they've struggled in terms of being able to defend the slot. DJ Hayden was supposed to fill in for Aaron Colvin. He hadn't played well, and of course he's nicked up now. So their backup nickel corner is going to be in that game. So look for the Kansas City Chiefs to try to exploit that matchup. But I think the Jacksonville Jaguars, if they're going to win this game, they've got to win the turnover battle. No question about it. Especially with no Leonard Fournette, they've got to create some short fields for their offense, because you're going to have to score some points.
And the Chiefs have turned the ball over once all year. I want to just go back what Doug Marrone was talking about when he was just speaking so highly of Pat Mahomes. There's a play that was forgotten from Monday Night Football. This is this type of stuff you see on film that I think makes a coach speak. Now, this was an incompletion, but if you watch this, he avoids that rush. You're going to see it from a better angle. His receiver hits him in the hands. Watch how he's getting hit here on right there and slings it falling backwards into his receiver's hands with 2 corners, or corner and a safety converging. The receiver after the game, I think it was DeMarcus Robinson, said, "I'm supposed to catch that ball." That you see stuff like that, and he is making such high degree of difficulty throws with pinpoint accuracy that even against a great defense, you're going to find those types of holes.
Can that come back to haunt him in that his confidence is so high? They've had such success. He's not turning the ball over. He's throwing into such tight coverage that all of a sudden you get almost a little inflated sense of what you're able to do when you start seeing, the turnovers creep up on you?
The great players play at a different level. They see different things. The game is at a different speed to them. They play the game frame by frame by frame. The game, it slows down, almost like it's in slow motion. Michael Jordan talked about, man, I couldn't hear the crowd. Like when you are an elite athlete, and I believe Pat Mahomes is going to be one of those. Now, just right now, he's just now getting started. So Brett Favre was just like this when he started. Aaron Rodgers was just like this. Steve Young was just like this. The guys who have been superstars, they do things like this, and that's why you have the coaches, saying the type of things. Now, last year in the playoffs, they did face Ben Roethlisberger and Tom Brady. So, Coach, just slow down a little bit as far as your accolades for Patty Mahomes there a little bit.
All right, Chiefs and Jags. This will be a good one. Chris Canty, stick around. Coming up, are the Patriots back on track after their 2nd straight win? That's next on First Things First. Chris Canty back with us. Big night for Tom Brady. Chris, the way I start most of my Patriots scripts. Brady came into the game 3 touchdowns shy of 500, and he got his favorite target back in Julian Edelman, who returned after a 4-game suspension, had 7 catches, 57 yards. Brady threw for 341 yards, had 4 total touchdowns, including this beauty to Josh Gordon for touchdown number 500. Patriots topped the Colts 38-24, improving to 3-2. Here is Tom Brady after the game.
Things like that, milestones and so forth, there's so many people that contribute. So I just think of all the people that, have really worked hard. And, quarterback doesn't throw him to himself. He needs people to catch him and block, and defenses make plays, and coach is the coach. And these are all, great team awards. So
to catch any pass from Tom is amazing, let alone some history-making catch or pass. For him, I told him congratulations, and I know there's many more for him to come. Hopefully he's got a lot more left in him. I'm pretty sure he does. So I'm looking forward to that. And, the next, history point to make for him, I hope to be a part of it. So it was awesome.
It was good to get out there and catch some rocks and go out and make some plays and be with the fellas. It was I haven't played football in I think it was like 405 days or something like that.
just a good win on a short week, and to be 3-2, where we're at 1-2. So we got a huge game coming up, a week from Sunday.
I got to ask you, you guys give each other a hard time when you see someone walk to the podium and one of your teammates is wearing that?
No, you
something
love
else.
that.
If
You
you're
love
not
that.
Cam Newton,
Come
you
on,
do?
you love that. A little
Yeah?
sauce, repping for the Boston Celtics. Their season about to start.
See, what was he trying to show the people?
Got suspended for PEDs. Hey, baby, it's all natural.
Oh, there it is.
It's just, hey, there it is. I've been in the gym.
Boom,
Bap,
boom.
bap.
Bap,
Little
bap.
gun show action.
Yeah, why you think Jenna has a strapless dresser? Huh? So you can see her ankles? Hey,
100%.
Yeah, you can't hide the
Not
money.
so much.
Right.
What'd you make of Tom Brady and the Patriots last night, Chris?
I thought they were outstanding. And that snapshot of how they want to play is the first drive that they came out with, how they opened the game.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brady going 9 for 9. You saw they got Edelman involved early. They were able to show some of the run game, but then the play action off of the run game, the sell it pass where they pulled the offensive guard, draw that linebacker, that second level of the defense up, create that separation to get Gronkowski involved. So I thought all of the things that they did schematically is exactly what Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels want to do. And then in the second half of that game, being able to run the football. They showed the attempts in the first half, but they got more productivity in the ground game in the second half. And if Trent Brown and Joe Tooney are going to roll off the ball like they did on that touchdown run by Sony Michel, if your offensive line is going to get that kind of movement at the point of attack, this is going to be a dangerous Patriots offense. All of these guys, they're trying to get the reps so they can gel together. But as the season progresses, this can be a special group.
I think what Belichick and Brady are trying to build on the first quarter of the season is they want to have a running game. They know they can throw the ball. They don't think they're going to out-athlete you on the outside. So they realize the weather's going to change. How can we run the football so that we can be more balanced? That's what I see. Last year, we forget. Deion Lewis, now with the Tennessee Titans, rushed for 800 yards last year with the Pats. Now, Sony Michel, a younger, bigger version. I believe that they are going to settle for James White to be the primary pass catcher out of the backfield. Sony Michel, he's going to be the ground gainer. Totally different than kind of what they were in college, where him and Chubb were that 1-2 punch there at Georgia. But Sony Michel was more of the third down, and Chubb was more of the runner. I believe that Belichick and them and Josh McDaniel are going to flip that. We're going to see a heavy dose of Sony Michel, 15 to 18 carries a game. As you can see in the last 2 weeks, that was their recipe for being successful. They only build as that as we go into the season.
Listen, Tom Brady was essentially flawless yesterday. I think he started game 14 of 15, and the one incompletion was a drop on third down by Julian Edelman that hit him in the hands. He played a near perfect game of football, and it's now, we went into that Miami game, I was saying, man, I'm not sounding the alarms yet, but if they lose to Miami, it will be time to sound the alarms. What has the offense done since then? 38 on Miami, 38 on Indy. Now Edelman's back. Gronk is banged up, but that's basically his standard procedure to be banged up. You said before the show, see, if you were Tom Brady, you'd never stop playing football. Man, but if I were Rob Gronkowski, I might have retired at halftime like Vontae Davis. He had his armor popping off during the game. Yeah. He gets just beaten alive. But the offense is now, Josh Gordon's an interesting wrinkle. But I want to talk about James White for a second, because he stayed with you, or you coached him. You've known him for a decade.
Him and Giovanni Bernard, they're very, very good friends. Giovanni Bernard stayed with me at the early part of his high school career because of some difficulty, and then he lived with James White. But James White is the perfect Patriot.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about. And is James White almost the example? Because all of a sudden, only Alvin Kamara has more receptions as a running back in the NFL than James White. He's been their leading receiver the last couple weeks. Is he the perfect example of, if you buy in and you get in this New England system and you get a couple years to really be fully embrace it, that they can turn, I don't want to say anybody into somebody, but when you saw James White coming up, did you see this type of football player?
I thought he was a pro. He played at St. Thomas. We have St. Thomas Academy, St. Thomas Aquinas there in Fort Lauderdale. They have 15 NFL players, the most in NFL record. They've had that record for the last 5 or 6 years. 40 kids playing Division I. He started, him and Giovanni Bernard started rare as freshmen. Like, we had to play them. We knew they were difference maker, but he's been a program guy. That's why he went all the way to Wisconsin. There were 4 or 5 running backs Wisconsin thought was better than him. But James, no different than St. Thomas. He's a system kid. He will do exactly what the coach tells him to do. He's made himself into a pro, and he's earned that respect in that New England locker room. Why? he's a team captain now. So he's kind of grinded it out. You wouldn't have thought it, but those who know James White, this is the kind of role he played in high school, same role he played at Wisconsin. He embraced that, and he is the epitome of the Patriot way.
Cris, tell me how he went from a couple weeks ago. We were all worried about this Patriots team. We sat here and we said, hey, if they lose to the Dolphins in this game, the narrative has completely changed. It's all over. And now all of a sudden, it looks like they're the Patriots again on both sides of the ball. It's not okay. So they got Edelman back, and maybe Josh Gordon is folded in, but they still have the same cast of characters from a couple weeks ago.
And Cris said, "Be careful with because he wasn't concerned. I wasn't concerned."
Yeah, no, exactly.
Right.
We called it like we saw it. We knew that undefeated Dolphins team wasn't what everybody was saying that they were, and that New England was at some point going to get back to the New England that we know. But there were question
marks around this.
Well, yeah, but Bill Belichick looks at September as extended preseason, and that's exactly what this team used that month for in terms of being able to establish an identity and how we want to play. And I think now that you have the full complement of weapons that Tom Brady has now, I think that you'll start to see this group develop that chemistry, that rapport. Tom Brady talked about it in terms of trusting Josh Gordon. When he threw it up in the double coverage, Josh Gordon was able to make that play. But when you see the effect of having Edelman and Josh Gordon out there with Rob Gronkowski, it opens up things for everybody else. I mean, you look at that James White touchdown catch. Look at what Najee Good was doing. He was supposed to be on James White. He's moving away from James White toward Julian Edelman just because Julian Edelman had been targeted so much in that game. It was wide open on the angle route. But that's what Edelman does for a lot of those guys. Creates opportunities. You keep the defense off balance. And Tom Brady is able to identify where he wants to go with the ball. Accuracy, velocity, gets it there.
Right. You don't believe this is one of the better Patriot offenses, but you've kind of expressed that with the new rules, like with Tom Brady playing now, there's only a certain number of ways how you can attack him. Like your mode of going after Tom Brady, they've outlawed that.
Yeah.
Right? Like you believe in going through
There is no more cut the quarterback in half. There is no more of that. You can't do that anymore. That's what the defensive line coaches used to tell us when I came in the league in 2005. There is no more of that. You got to do the gator roll like what Aaron Donald does and try to turn off to the side to make sure you don't fall on the quarterback. But with Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, unless you're able to intimidate him with the physicality of the game, then Tom Brady's going to sit back there and he's going to pick you apart. We know that he's one of the most mobile quarterbacks inside of the pocket. But if you don't have the threat of the physicality to throw off his timing, his accuracy with his receivers, there's no chance that you're going to have to stop that team.
That's why C said he'd play forever if he were Brady.
Absolutely.
Can't hit him. Got
Man,
the
these
system.
rules, shoot, another 3 years, man. That's 15.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.